Alright guys, um, so these are now the videos that I have promised to share with you guys for Unit 1 until Unit 3. So this one is for Unit 1. We're just going to browse through the content that we need to cover under Unit 1. Now, remember I mentioned that Unit 1 is theory. Everything, there are no calculations, no formula to know here. You just need to know the basics, the theory part, and yeah, that will help a lot in the other units also. But for now, let's focus on the theory part. Now, at the end of this video, once you're done watching this video, I want you to make sure that you know how to do these things that I've listed here. You know what a population is, and you know what a sample is. You know what a statistic is, and you know what a parameter is. And then most importantly, you know the different sampling methods. So we have two categories. A sampling method is either a probability sampling method or a non-probability sampling method. Okay, and then the answers and then the reasons for sampling. So let's start up here. What is a population? Now remember, we are doing statistics that has to deal with data and all that. So a population now refers to all elements of interest when you are collecting data. Let's say you want to collect data about Windhoek. Windhoek would be your population, meaning all elements of interest, the group that contains every participant of what you're interested in. That is what we call a population. So just memorize that a population refers to all elements of interest. Now, sometimes it's hard to get or collect data from a large group such as Windhoek. Let's say you want to find out something about Windhoek. You can't collect it, or rather it's hard, it's either expensive or hard or just not easy to collect data from every participant in Windhoek. So we do now what we call sampling. So sampling means choosing a portion from a population. So a sample is now a subset, or a sample is a portion, a part of a population. So that is the difference between the two. Population means whole group or all elements of interest, while a sample means just part. Let's say I want to find out data about NAST. NAST will be the population, but maybe it's hard for me to get every participant from NAST, select a portion from NAST. Maybe say I want all the business management students. In that business management students group is a sample, or is the portion of the entire population. I hope that part is clear. Now we also have, let's say now I decide to collect data from NAST, and I do some measures now on that. Let's say I collect data about the favorite student's subject, and then I find the average, in other words, the mean. The data that I've calculated is called a parameter if I calculated that from a population. So meaning a parameter is a measure that is calculated from a population, or that is calculated using a population data. While a statistic is a measure that I calculate from a sample. Let's say I have a sample and I do some measures on that. Those are what we call statistics. So I can calculate mean from a sample, or I can calculate mean from the entire population. Now they're represented differently. That's why we have this table here. If I compute data from a sample and I find the mean, that mean is called sample mean, and is represented by X bar. So from now on, because most formulas you're going to use, they're going to have these symbols. So I need to now know what they represent. So X represents sample mean. So it's a statistic. While mu, okay, this mu represents population mean. So X bar and mu are both means. But X bar is a mean for a sample, and then mu is a mean for a population. So when you see it in a formula, you know the difference. Same thing with S and this sign. So standard S means standard deviation, but for a sample. S squared variance, proportion P, so on. Then the signs on the right, those are the signs for the population. So that is the difference. A statistic is a measure computed from a sample. A parameter is a measure computed from a population. That is the second thing I want you to know. Moving on, I also want you to know, why do we sample? So instead of now, in other words, instead of us calculating data from, just getting information from the whole group, what is the reason for sampling? Sampling means choosing a portion of the group. Now, how do we do that? So these are the reasons. So because it saves time and also it minimizes the cost of collecting data. So instead of me collecting data from the whole Namibia, I might sample and just get portions or portions from that. Then it will save time and it will minimize cost. And also sometimes it may be difficult to get hold of elements. And when you have a smaller group, you also have better control of how the data is collected. And also sometimes because the results are limited and it's more convenient. So when they ask you, what are the reasons for sampling? And this is what you give. Moving on, the difference between a survey and a census. A survey is simply collecting data from a sample. But when it's a census, it's collecting data from the whole population. When a survey is conducted, data is collected from a sample, while when data is collected from a population, that is what we call a population. And then our last part for this unit is the sampling methods. Now remember I mentioned that sampling means choosing the participants or selecting where to collect data from the population. Now we have two methods. So we have what we call probability sampling method and non-probability sampling method. Now remember, sampling means selecting elements from where to collect your data from. So probability sampling method therefore means when you are selecting your elements, all of them have an equal chance of being chosen. If I have a group of 10 elements, it means every one of those 10 have an equal chance of being chosen. That is what we call probability sampling method. However, non-probability is the opposite. It means the sampling is done in such a way that it might disadvantage some of the participants. So in other words, the elements do not have an equal chance of being chosen. So first things first, I want you to know what is the difference. Probability, the elements have an equal chance of being chosen. Non-probability, the elements do not have an equal chance of being chosen. Now, under probability and under non-probability, we both have 4 each. So first thing, I want you to memorize what is under probability, what is under non-probability. In case they ask what is the or what least the probability or least the non-probability, that you know what falls under each. But I also want you to know what they mean, because they can give you scenarios. Then you have to mention now that this scenario represents which sampling method. So under probability sampling method, we have simple random sampling, stratified, cluster, and systematic. Simple, stratified, cluster, systematic, those are under probability sampling category. And under non-probability, we have convenience, judgmental, quarter, and snowball sampling. Now let's start with the probability sampling, where the elements have an chance of being chosen. And what do they mean? Simple random sampling, that one is the easiest one. It means it just means what the name says. You are randomly selecting your participants. Okay, let's say from my tutoring group, I just randomly select anyone. That would fall under simple random sampling. So every element has, if I'm randomly selecting, I don't have any criteria for choosing. That means the selection, the sampling is random, then that falls under that. Okay, so if they ask you or they give you a scenario where participants were just randomly selected, no requirements, no whatever, then that is what we call simple random sampling. Then it comes to stratified. Now, most people confuse stratified and cluster. Okay, there's a difference between stratified and cluster, but some people confuse the two. Now, what is the difference? Stratified, first you divide your population into groups, and then you take random samples from those groups. While cluster, you divide the population into groups, then you just randomly select those groups. Okay? Meaning, let's say for stratified, an example would be choosing where is this? And let's say NAS is the population. Then you have marketing students, you have accounting students. So you divide now NAS into the courses that people are doing. Then from those courses is where you take your random samples. It is stratified. So two things. You first get a group and those random samples. While cluster, you divide the group in you take you divide the population into groups. Then from that list of groups you have, you randomly select those groups, and then you just take the whole group. You are not selecting from the groups. You just take a person from that group. That is the difference between stratified and cluster. And systematic sampling. This one is the one where you have a system that I'll select every 10th person, I'll select every 7th person that enters the show. That is systematic. You have a system. You have an equal interval that I'll select every 5th person in the class. That is systematic sampling method. So those four that I just described are the probability sampling methods. Then we have non-probability sampling methods. So remember, this is the only video you need to watch for you to master Unit 1. Then you go through the document. I think you should be sorted by then. Then we have non-probability sampling methods. So we have convenience sampling method. That one is self-explanatory. From the name, it's convenience means the person that is selecting or that is sampling chooses the participants or the elements that are convenient for them to reach or that are easiest for them to reach. Okay, so that is convenience sampling method. So let's say I want to select, I'm from Windhoek. So convenience sampling means me selecting people from Windhoek because they are easiest to reach. And we have the second one, judgmental sampling method. So judgmental sampling method, it simply means the purpose of you are selecting participants based on the purpose of your research. If I'm researching about something that is in the medical whatever world, it would make sense for me to choose doctors and nurses and whatever. So the participants are determined by the purpose of your research. Then we have quarter sampling. This one simply means you have certain groups and then you just randomly select people for that group for as long as you meet the number that you are trying to reach. And then now you interview 10 people from each age group. So these 10 people, how you call them, as long as under the category of 18 to 25, you got that number. Then finally, snowball sampling. This you get one person, then from then on, the person that you select recruits another one. Let's say I want to get students. So I get one student, then I tell that student to get another student, and so on. That is what we call snowball sampling methods. You get the referrals. So these are the probability sampling methods. So once you have mastered that short video have covered everything you need to know under Unit 1. If you listen to the video up until this point, I want you to look at this test here and I want you to go through this and then show me that you have indeed answered this question. Sorry, you have indeed looked at the video up until the end. Then I want you to answer me this question. You can just make a screenshot. Then you tell me, okay, now this one is which sampling method, this one is which sampling method. Okay, just need to state this is random, this is what, this is what. Then I see that you have understood the sampling methods. Also, this is what they ask sometimes is they mention 4 weight samples. In the video, I have described or I have mentioned what those reasons are. In fact, I've given 5. They sometimes ask me the question. So reasons why we take samples. Once you're done, then I want you to have a look at the other questions now. All right, multiple choice maybe. So this is how sometimes they ask now those random sampling method. You are given a scenario, you need now to say what it is. Now, an example here will be when the population is divided into groups. There are random samples. I've already explained in the unit that when we get a group and then we get a random sample from that group, which is stratified. Okay, you divide the group and you take a random sample that is called stratified sampling. So the answer for this is stratified sampling. When you divide the population into groups and then you select some of the groups, that is what we call cluster. So that what I'm trying to say is understand what the sampling methods are, so that when you're given a scenario, you know what to do. And that is Unit 1. If you have listened until the end, I was hoping the video would be a bit short, but ended up going until 17 minutes, but it's fine. Just go through and yeah. Awesome. See you in the next video.